What's up, guys? Hope you're enjoying this Friday, uh, last day of school of the week. This is your assignment for the day. We're going to talk about Southwest Asia specifically, both the physical things and more the human geography side of things. So make sure you follow along. Make sure you fill in the blanks as you're supposed to. You'll hear me say it and you'll see it on the screen. If you need to, ask the substitute to please pause it. If you need to fill out something, or if you get a little bit behind, ask the sub to pause it. That way you can get caught up and get everything that you need, because this is for a grade. So make sure you get it all. Have a good day. The countries that we're talking about on these notes: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Yemen. All these are on the Arabian Peninsula, located at the intersection of three continents: Africa, Asia, and Europe. They're all a major trade area and very big religious center for the religion of Islam. Okay, you shouldn't be writing just yet. Actually, you should. Located at the intersection of three continents, you should put Africa, Asia, and Europe in those first blanks. Major trade area and cultural and religious center. Make sure you have those written down as well. So we're going to the next slide. Here's a map of the area. Here's Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, UAE, Qatar. And you can see here the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Persian Gulf surrounding this piece of land makes it a peninsula. Water on three sides, right? Yes. Now, towns. Back in the day, served as trade centers for desert caravans, ports of exchange goods from Silk Roads, the Indian Ocean trade, as well as the Mediterranean, all kind of came through this area. Some of these towns were near oases, mostly because of the water, and fertile lands along the major rivers. Obviously, water being a very important part of survival. Most people are going to settle near some kind of body of water. Bedouins. Bedouins are nomads who moved from oasis to oasis, water to water, basically, in search of that, trying to survive. They built a culture on strong family ties, fought against other families for pasture lands, who was going to control what area, and those fighting skills that they developed throughout time helped them spread Islam throughout the peninsula and other parts of Southwest Asia. Okay, Islam is a monotheistic religion, means one God, belief in one God, based on the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad, arguably the most important person in Islam, lived part of his life in Mecca, and which is why Mecca is the holiest city for the religion of Islam. That's why they take a pilgrimage there. They're supposed to, if they can, once in their lifetime, take a trip to Mecca. Islam, the major religion of the peninsula and of Southwest Asia, North Africa, and that's why we kind of grouped them together. There are 5 pillars of Islam, okay, that all Muslims must follow. Remember, if you're a believer in Islam, you're called a Muslim. Okay. Here are the 5 pillars that they must follow. You got to have faith. Faith is number 1. There is no God but Allah. Muhammad is the only prophet. Okay, you have to express faith. Number 2 is prayer. Pray 5 times a day towards Mecca. Okay, most of the people go, if they're going to pray at some point during the day, or at some point when they go have some kind of worship, they're going to go to mosque, which is basically the equivalent to a church. Okay, but pray 5 times a day facing towards Mecca. Number 3 is charity. Give money to the less fortunate, help others whenever they need it, basically. Number 4 is fasting. During the holy month of Ramadan, they fast. They don't eat from sunup to sundown. And then the 5th one is pilgrimage, or a Hajj, which is a holy journey, basically, a religious journey. And they, at least once in their lifetime, need to go to Mecca, if at all possible, to fulfill their 5 pillars. Okay, the Islamic warriors conquered lands and spread Islam through 3 continents: Asia, Africa, and Europe. And their fighting skills that they developed along the way helped them become a force in these areas. During the Middle Ages, a large part of the world was controlled by Muslim rulers because of their ability to fight, because of their ability to roam and take over other places quickly. Islam spread quickly, and thus they controlled a major part of the world in the Middle Ages. Here's an example of writing in Arabic. There's a mosque, people praying. And there's a picture of Mecca. You see, these are all people all around. So you're talking about millions of people right there. Areas, may not be able to see the bottom, but areas at one time under Muslim rule, you're looking at the entire part of North Africa, okay, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, okay, then you got South Asia, Southwest Asia, which we're talking about right through here, and on over to the Philippines. So at one time or another, all these areas are under Muslim rule, so you can see how vast it is. We've talked about different government types throughout the year: democracies, constitutional monarchies, absolute monarchies, things like that. Some of these Arabian governments, a lot of them at one point or another, were theocratic governments in which the religious leader was also the leader of the government, or the religious leader controlled the government. The rulers relied on religious law and consulted religious scholars to decide what to do on various issues. Iran, the religious leaders controlled the entire country. Okay. After World War I, the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, which is basically modern-day Turkey, led to European colonial powers taking parts of the peninsula. And the reason is oil and control of the Suez Canal. These colonial powers wanted to take over the peninsula, and they were unable to do so. Abdul al-Aziz, which is the Saud family, consolidated power on the peninsula and was able to keep the Europeans and others from gaining a foothold in the area. Only a few countries on the Arabian Gulf and Yemen remained free of Saud control, and they established Saudi Arabia in 1932. That's what it says at the bottom. Formed Saudi Arabia in 1932. Make sure you write that down. Economies. The principal resource in all these areas is oil. The Arabian Peninsula makes up almost all their export money and GDP from oil. It is the big deal. Oil prices are extremely important to the area. It allows them to access money, or to use excess money for other parts of the economy, especially water projects, trying to find a way to create more water for their people. All that money comes from oil, and it is a huge, huge deal. OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is called OPEC, OPEC, helps members control worldwide oil prices. It is a very powerful organization based out of this area, in which they can help control and dictate prices of oil for everybody else. They adjust the prices, the quotas, and they really have a big hand in how much we pay for our stuff over here, as far as when you go to the pump, or your parents go to the gas pump. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Iran and Iraq all are part of the OPEC group. Modern Arab life. Modern life, they've had some improvements over the years. Modern transportation has replaced camels, which is the old way of moving around the desert. Supermarkets and malls are taking over the small traditional marketplaces, the old mom and pop stores. They're becoming more urbanized. You can see the percentages as they've risen throughout the years. By 2015, they're expected to be at 70%, and Saudi Arabia itself to be 83% urbanized. So they're all the people moving to the city. They've upgraded education because of the oil technology. Many foreigners work in these areas because of the lack of education in the area. They bring in people from the outside to help evaluate things get things running and teach some of the locals because of their lack of an education earlier in life. The women in some places have had some advancements, in some places are still way behind, mostly because of the religious laws. They're supposed to cover their heads with scarves or veils, with according to Muslims' beliefs. Women in some places have become more educated. They're having those opportunities, but some they still have to stay at home and manage the households and cannot go out without permission. And if you watch those videos from that stamp sheet, you can see the other things that they weren't allowed to do. Pray 5 times a day, still part of the religion. They must stop whatever they're doing to do this. And the last one there, you can't really tell, is fast during Ramadan until the festival of Eid al-Fitr. Holy places. There are 3 major religions found in Southwest Asia: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. You should already know that from our stamp sheet. They all claim Jerusalem as a holy city. The Jews, modern and ancient homeland, the Temple Mount, which is the Western Wall, or the only part left of the Western Wall, is in Jerusalem. To Christians, the crucifixion of Jesus was here. And then to the Muslims, the third holiest city is Jerusalem as well. This is where Muhammad ascended into heaven. This is called the Dome of the Rock. All 3 of these religions claim Jerusalem as a holy city, which makes Jerusalem very difficult to split apart and divide up between the Palestinians and the Israelis, which leads to a whole huge conflict that we don't have the time to get into. The Dome of the Rock and this mosque, Al-Aqsa, is located on the Temple Mount, right there by each other. And for years and years, the Jews and Muslims have clashed over this site, and they continue to do so today. Here's a picture. Here's the Western Wall right here. You can see back behind, this is the Dome of the Rock over there, very close to each other. Here's another picture of it. History of unrest. We're going to fly through this. We're going to fly through this part. History of unrest in the area. It's always been, just know throughout history, the entire Southwest Asia, so specifically when it comes to the Palestinians and the Israelis, have had issues through the years. Just the way it's been. Some people trace it back to biblical things, but we're not going to get into all that. So we're going to stick to what we have right here. The Ottoman Empire, which is the Muslim government in Turkey, ruled Eastern Mediterranean from 1520 to 1922. It sided with Germany during World War I and fell apart after the war. Okay. Britain and France received the lands that was divided up after the war. Okay. The French took the northern part, which is Lebanon and Syria, and the British took the southern part, Israel and Jordan. Okay. The French played the religious groups against one another for their benefit. Okay. And Lebanon became independent in 1943, Syria in 1946, because of the things the French were doing at that time. And here's kind of a map of the empire. Palestine. Alright, the big issue. Palestine and the Israelis. Palestine, land controlled by the British. Okay, after the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, Zionism, which is an ideal, a group trying to create a homeland for the Jews in Palestine, started in the 1800s. And when that started, many Jews went to Palestine to live. Okay, before World War I, there was a 12% population of Palestinians in the area. Oops. Said that wrong. Before World War I, 12% of the population in Palestine were Jewish. The British allowed Jews to migrate to Palestine. After World War I, the Arabs resisted the establishment of the Jewish state because they already lived there and they didn't think it should happen. But they went ahead and did it anyway. In 1939, the British halted Jewish immigration and they divided the region into two. Transjordan, which was Arab and British government. And then you had a Palestinian British government, along with the Jews, or Palestine, which was the British government, and then it had the Jews and the Arabs in that area. And here's our picture here. So prior to World War II, you had basically land, a competition, a fight, if you will, between the land the Palestinians lived on and the land that the Zionism, these people wanted to create for the Jews. And issues keep going and going. Finally, they kind of stopped the migration in 1939, only to get into World War II. And after World War II, obviously World War II, we had the Holocaust and the persecution of many Jews in Europe. Once it's over, many of the Holocaust survivors wanted to settle in Palestine. In 1947, the UN developed a plan to divide Palestine into two states, one for the Arabs and one for the Jews. In 1948, that nation of Israel was established. The Arab nations, who did not like this at all, invaded Israel to prevent the establishment. By the 1950s, Israel was firmly established, not to the liking of the surrounding Arab communities. Hostilities has happened since the 50s and still continue to this day. Every year, 2 years, they seem to rise in hostilities or lower. Okay, but they're there. Palestinian Arabs and Christians caught in the middle of this issue, they either fled or were forced into refugee camps. That's where you get the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and you have more issues with that. The PLO is an important organization that started in the 60s, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and they formed this group to help retain and regain land once lost to the Israelis. So here's a map, and in the yellow you have the Jewish land, and in the brown here would be the West Bank occupied by the Palestinians, and the Gaza Strip over here. When you hear about issues on the news, this is where you're going to have most of your issues, along the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And you can see Jerusalem somewhat cut in half. Almost done with part one, kids. Economics. The creation of Israel has made a large number of Palestinian refugees. Hard to provide education and services for them, especially in Jordan, because all these refugees are refugees because they left. And they go to Jordan or Syria or somewhere in Lebanon, somewhere nearby, to settle. Makes it an issue for those local governments. Civil wars in Lebanon and Cyprus have hit the areas hard. Obviously, if you're having a civil war in your country, you're not going to make much money. Your economies are going to suffer. Other parts of the area, the climates are good for different fruits, citrus crops, things like that. And then tourism is big for some of these places to make some money. So the economies can be good as long as you're obviously not trying to kill everybody around the area. The area is perfect for trade routes. It's kind of in the middle of everything. The crossroads of Europe to Asia and to Africa. So it's good for trade. Another negative, since the poor infrastructures for a lot of these places, bad roads, irrigation issues, damage from the civil wars, all those things will hurt the economies of some of these places. And then they need the better communication abilities and power sources to develop high-tech industry. So there's some good things and some bad things with these different countries' economies. Okay, so a lot of improvement there. Modern life, and this is the last slide of part one. Most meals eaten in the homes that include hummus, baba ganoush. I'm going to butcher these words, I apologize. Tabbouleh, chicken, lamb, fruit, sweets such as kolacha. So some food there. Maybe we should have it one day for dinner. Lebanon is a refuge for Muslims and Christians. The area, as far as Muslims go, we're talking about two groups, Sunni and the Shiite or Shia. The Shia group makes up most of these areas. The Druze people, Druze, are secretive about their religious practices and live in the mountains. So they just try to stay away from most of the uh, things that are happening and live secret lives, keep their religions secret, so no one knows what's happening. Maronite and Eastern Orthodox Christians make up the area, and in Israel you have the Jews from the United States, Eastern Europe, Russia, Ethiopia, and all over the region basically coming into Israel. They also have a large number of Arab Muslims, including Bedouins, Druze, Sunni, and the Circassians, or the Circassians, however you want to say it, in Israel. So there's still a good mix of people, different types of religions in Israel, but the biggest is the Jews and Muslims. That is it for part one. 20 minutes. Part two coming up.